I have no idea why I am writing this at all. Perhaps I'm hoping someone will tell me I'm not insane, or perhaps I just need to let it out. However, here it is. I'm Jake, I'm 29, and I thought I had everything all out until recently. I genuinely thought Olivia and I were destined to be together for eternity. During the 6 years we spent together, like any marriage, we had our ups and downs, but I believed that we were a good match. I had faith in her. After then, everything collapsed. It began modestly, almost imperceptibly. Olivia began working a lot of overtime. Her schedule has always been a little erratic because she organizes events, but it was getting to be a bit much. Hey, babe. Stuck at work late again. Don't wait up. I didn't give it much thought at first. She enjoyed her job, after all. I also had faith in her. Then she began using her phone strangely, turning off the ringer while keeping it face down. Her phone came on one evening as I was sitting next to her on the couch. Sarah texted me, "Can't wait to see you tonight." My stomach sank. Olivia just smiled and put her phone aside as if nothing had happened when I looked at her. "Who is Sarah?" I inquired. She dismissed it, saying, "Oh, just a coworker. We are putting up a major event." There was something too casual about the way she stated it. Too much practice. However, I persuaded myself that I was overly suspicious. A week later, I discovered in her handbag a hotel receipt. My hands trembled as I gazed at it for a full minute. The date fell on a night when she had been working late. That night, I confronted her when she got home. "What is this, Olivia?" I displayed the receipt. Her eyes widened and she froze. "It's not what you think," I interrupted her with a harsh tone, saying, "Don't insult me." "Be honest with me." She started crying. That's when I realized. Her voice was shaking as she murmured, "It's not. I mean, yes. I met someone. However, it's not serious, not serious." I made a hollow, bitter laugh. "You've been lying to me and skulking around and you don't mean it?" She broke down in tears, and for a few seconds, I nearly felt sorry for her. Then she said it, though. "It just happened. I didn't intend for it to happen." That's when I became angry. Hard. "How much time?" I spoke in a chilly tone. She paused. "4 months," she uttered, hardly raising her voice beyond a whisper. 4 months! I felt as though I was having trouble breathing as my chest constricted. For 4 months, I had been hugging her at night and waking up beside her while she was skulking around with someone else. Who? I made a demand. She glanced at the floor for a moment before responding. "Olivia, who?" Ryan, a friend of mine." I stumbled back as if I had been struck. Ryan had visited our home numerous times. Together, we had watched games and had beverages. In addition, he had been having an affair with Olivia behind my back. How long I stood there, I don't know, just numb. I turned and left after that. Olivia screamed out to me, but I continued on. I was unable to. Hours passed while I drove around, unsure of my destination. Olivia's calls and texts buzzed on my phone, but I chose to ignore them. I just sat there after putting the car in park and pulling into a random parking lot. How could I have missed it? What had caused my blindness? And how on earth was I going to recover from this? That evening, I did not return home. I was unable to. In the end, I crashed at my brother's house. When I arrived at his door at 2 in the morning, looking like I had been struck by a vehicle, he asked no questions, simply sat down on the couch beside me and gave me a beer. "Do you want to discuss it after some time?" he inquired at last. I looked at the floor and shook my head. My throat was constricted, and I thought that if I talked about it, I would either cry or lose it all, or perhaps both. However, after a few minutes of stillness, all was revealed. My voice was flat as I said, "Olivia has been cheating for 4 months." He straightened his posture. "What?" "Wait a minute." I took a deep breath. "With Ryan? Ryan?" His tone became piercing. "Like your pal Ryan?" I gave a sour laugh. "Indeed, my companion." He shook his head, saying, "Jesus, what was it she said? What are your thoughts?" I massaged my face. She sobbed and said that it just happened, as if it were an accident in which she tripped and fell. After muttering a series of expletives, he shook his head and leaned back. Eventually, he said, "Man, I'm sorry." Unconfident in my ability to talk, I nodded. "I didn't get any sleep that evening." I just lay on the couch and stared up at the ceiling while mentally reliving every moment of the previous few months. All of her strange looks, late nights, and foolish justifications now made sense. My head was pounding, and the morning arrived too quickly. About a dozen missed calls and texts from Olivia were visible when I checked my phone. Olivia, we need to talk, Jake. Please come home. Olivia, I sincerely apologize. Let me explain, please. Olivia, you are loved. My phone almost fell across the room. I was aware that I would ultimately need to return, if only to retrieve my belongings. However, I wasn't yet prepared. A few days went by. I couldn't face anyone, especially Ryan, so I called in sick to work. I simply couldn't get out to get some air, despite my brother's best efforts. Knowing that everyone would view me as the one who was cheated on made me not want to face the world. Ryan then gave a call. I just gazed at his name when it appeared on my phone. Anger tightened in my chest. However, I responded. Jake, he began in a quiet voice. Hey man, what on earth do you desire? I interrupted him. I apologize, he said. I promise that I didn't intend for this to occur. I thought, there it is again. Didn't intend for it to occur. You didn't intend for that to occur? My voice became piercing. Ryan, you have been cheating on my girlfriend for 4 months. Did you fall into her bed after tripping? He let out a sigh. I was unsure of how to tell you. Tell me? I almost burst out laughing. You had no intention of telling me. You intended to continue defrauding her behind my back. He remained silent. Only this thick, weary quiet, I remarked icily. I don't even know how you sleep at night. Jake, I promise it wasn't serious, Ryan. You know what? My jaw tensed. I don't care. We're finished. Take my number away. Before he could utter another word, I hung up. A few days later, I returned to the flat at last. I wasn't ready to confront Olivia yet, so I waited until I knew she would be at work. Entering our apartment seemed a little off. As if the entire area was tainted. Her belongings were all over the place. Pictures of us on the wall, her shoes by the door, and her jacket sprawled over the couch. I proceeded to the bedroom and began packing. I was only bringing my laptop, some personal belongings, and some clothes. I left the majority of the items, including the furniture. None of it appealed to me. I discovered a framed picture of Olivia and I from 2 years ago, grinning on the beach with Olivia's arm around me. While I was halfway through packing, after a moment of staring, I placed it face down on the dresser. I heard the door open as I was zipping up my duffel. My heart fell. Jake? Olivia's voice reverberated throughout the flat. I shut my eyes. She had to return home early today, of course. When she spotted me packing, her eyes widened as she entered the room. What are you doing? Her voice faltered. How does it appear? I didn't even give her a glance. You don't have to go, Jake. We can resolve this. I sneered. Repair this? How can this be fixed specifically? I apologize. She muttered. I did something wrong. You did make a mistake, I yelled. But not just once. Olivia, 4 months. You lied to me for 4 months while you were having an affair with him. She flinched. I didn't intend to cause you any harm. Well, congrats. You did. Her hands trembled as she approached me. Jake, please refrain from doing this. I took a step back. Olivia, you did it already. Her eyes filled with tears. I still adore you. I gave a sour laugh. You are no longer allowed to say that. She slumped her shoulders. For a moment, I nearly felt guilty. Then I recalled the hotel receipt, though. The text from Sarah. The innumerable evenings she arrived home late, grinning at me as if nothing had happened. I said, I can't forgive you. Then, with her hands covering her face, she broke down entirely. I felt compelled to say something as I watched her cry for a moment, but I refrained. After grabbing my luggage, I moved past her. She took hold of my arm. Please, Jake, I withdrew. Then, without turning around, I left through the door. For the next 4 days, I stayed at my brother's house. I liked that he didn't press me to speak. He simply made sure I ate occasionally and gave me some space. The majority of the time, I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling while repeatedly thinking the same things. For what length of time had they been making fun of me behind my back? After visiting my flat, did Ryan sit on my couch, sip my beer, and then depart to spend the night with Olivia? When I wasn't there, did they make jokes about me? Did Olivia give me a kiss and then approach him? I felt nauseous at the prospect. Olivia's texts continued to ping on my phone. I ceased to open them. Not even the energy to be angry was left in me. Simply put, it was empty. Ryan didn't send another text. He was more aware. My brother attempted to divert my attention. One evening, he took me to a bar, a tiny establishment close to his flat. "Dude, hurry up," he said. "It's only a beverage." Sitting in the apartment was beginning to make me feel like I was going crazy, even though I didn't want to. So I went. It was silent and poorly lit. We took a seat at the bar. My brother placed a whiskey order for both of us. "Will you tell me what transpired?" After some time, he inquired. I let out a sigh. "You are aware already." "Yes, but it might be helpful to hear it from you." I massaged my face. "She claimed she didn't intend for it to occur." He gave a snort. "What a bunch of bullshit. I understand." I took a sip of my drink, briefly feeling grounded by the whiskey's burn. The worst thing is that I believe I anticipated it. I simply didn't want to accept it. He observed me silently for a while. "Dude, you deserve better." Though I wasn't sure I believed it, I nodded. Olivia arrived at my brother's residence a few days later. The doorbell rang as I was browsing through my phone on the couch. I heard her voice as my brother opened it. "Is Jake present?" He paused. "I doubt he's interested in seeing you," she remarked. "I just need 5 minutes. Please." My brother gave me a sidelong glance and said, "You want me to tell her to go?" I let out a sigh. "No. I will speak with her." I got up and made my way to the door. Olivia was standing with her arms encircling her body. Her eyes were puffy and red, and her face looked pale. "Hello," she murmured. I remained silent, simply gazed at her. She took a swallow. "Can we have a conversation?" After shutting the door, I went outside and asked, "What do you want?" She said, I wanted to see you." "To clarify, you have already explained," I said in a chilly tone. She had trembling hands. "I know you despise me, Jake hate you." I chuckled sourly. "I don't have the strength to be angry with you." "This wasn't what I expected to happen," she continued, her voice cracking. "When you weren't there, Ryan was there for me." I squinted. "When wasn't I?" With tears in her eyes, she remarked, "You were always working. You were aloof. You no longer inquired about my day. I felt invisible. It seemed as if someone had hit me." "Do you believe that this excuse is cheating?" I raised my voice. "You believe that having sex with my best buddy is acceptable?" She sobbed more as she shook her head. "Obviously not. I'm not saying that. What are you saying then?" I yelled. Breathing heavily, she wiped her eyes. "I'm not sure," I apologize. You simply what?" My voice had become harsh. "You were only trying to figure out how much you could get away with? You merely wanted to check if you could have us both." "No." She was crying so much that it was difficult to understand what she was saying. "I simply messed up. I was afraid I might lose you." "You lost me," I stated icily. "The moment you touched him, you lost me." She reached out to touch my arm as her face crumbled. I withdrew. "Please, Jake," she muttered. "I still adore you." I gave a headshake. "No, you don't." "When you love someone, you don't cheat on them." Her entire body drooped. She just stood there for a moment, looking at me as if she was waiting for me to say something, to reassure her that was well, that she was forgiven by me. However, I didn't. I said, "You must go now." She stopped. "Olivia, I mean it, we're done." I grew stern. "Don't give me another call." She nodded slowly, her face contorted in agony. She said in a final murmur, "I'm sorry." I didn't answer. I simply watched her leave as I stood there. I then poured myself into my task. I moved into my brother's couch. In order to avoid returning to an empty apartment or, worse, running into Olivia or Ryan, I worked long hours at the office and accepted every shift I could. I also started going to the gym a lot. Even if all it did was extinguish the raging rage in my chest, it was helpful. After work one evening, Ryan entered the bar where I was seated. I initially believed he hadn't noticed me. However, he paused when his gaze fell on me. He approached. "Are you serious about doing this?" I said, not even raising my eyes from my beverage. Ryan said, "I'm not here to fight with caution. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I turned to face him. I had trembling hands. "You're not allowed to apologize." "I understand," he muttered. "I made a mistake. I understand that I lost you as a friend. However, I just wanted to apologize to you. For a while, I gazed at him. Then I shook my head and chuckled. You're a piece of she, Ryan. He didn't dispute, simply stood there with a disappointed expression. What's the worst thing, you know? I said. I had faith in you. For you, I would have taken a bullet. I understand, he muttered. I got to my feet. You also tossed that away. For what purpose? I'm not sure, he said. I wish I could go back and change it. However, you can't, I stated bluntly. He gave a nod. I understand. I gave a headshake. Avoid me at all costs. He didn't say anything else, although it seemed like he wanted to. He simply gave a nod and turned to leave. I felt empty as I made my way back to my brother's place that evening. Now this was my life. No Olivia, no Ryan, only the debris that they left behind. I listened to the sounds of the city outside the window while I lay awake for a long time. Sleep eventually dragged me down. Additionally, I didn't dream about her for the first time in weeks. Silence can sometimes be more loud than any sound, which is funny. My life became quiet once Olivia and Ryan left. Too silent. The kind of silence that makes breathing difficult and presses against your chest. I put more effort into my work than ever before. Weekends, late nights, and early mornings. Anything to occupy my thoughts. I reasoned that I could avoid the eerie emptiness that followed me around if I kept myself occupied. For a time, it did the trick. Then came the evenings, though, replaying everything over and over while lying awake at 3 in the morning and gazing at the ceiling. Ryan's voice. It was an accident. Olivia's expression, I apologize. My pitiful hope that it wasn't real in some way, that it would have only been a nightmare when I woke up. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. I encountered Olivia one evening while I was on my way home from work. She was standing across the street, conversing with someone while illuminated by a streetlight. A man. I froze for a second. Painfully, my heart tightened. Then she chuckled, the quiet, comfortable laugh that was once hers. She appeared to be content. It was like a kick to the stomach. I just stood there observing her for a while. I'm still cleaning up the pieces of everything she broke, and I'm wondering how in the world she moved on so quickly. She finally caught sight of me. Her smile wavered. She turned her head away from the man and walked a little closer to me. Her hesitancy was evident in her eyes, as if she wasn't sure whether or not to speak. Before she could make up her mind, I turned and left. Ryan texted me a few days later. Ryan, hello. Can we have a conversation? I spent some time looking at the screen. After that, I removed the message. He never texted again. My brother persuaded me to accompany him to a party one evening. I should get out more and meet people, he suggested. I informed him, I'm not in the mood. You're never, he said. That is the issue. Still, I led him to drag me out. It was at a guy's place, full of strangers, and there was a strong marijuana odor. Feeling uncomfortable, I snatched up a glass and leaned against the wall. Then I caught sight of her. A girl smoking a cigarette while sitting on the balcony with her legs crossed and her dark hair cascading over her shoulder. For some reason, I went over. When I stepped out onto the balcony, she looked up. She seemed to be assessing me with her keen eyes. I said, Hey, she said. I rested my weight on the railing. Hard night? She gave a small smile. Aren't they all? I chuckled. Indeed. Basically. She looked at me for a while. You seem to be considering someone. Am I really that clear? She gave a shrug. Heartbreak is difficult to conceal. I arched an eyebrow. Why do you believe it to be heartbreak? She grinned. Because you have the expression, I secretly hope someone saves me, but I hate everyone. I gave a snort. Yeah, well, I don't believe I can be saved. Perhaps not. She extinguished her cigarette. But it doesn't mean you can't give it a shot. What's your name? I inquired. Emma, she said. Yours? Jake. Well, Jake, she continued, getting to her feet. Do you want to leave? I paused. What are you thinking of? She grinned. Come and see. In the end, we strolled about the city. Even though it was beyond midnight, people were still moving around the streets. Emma was a pleasure to speak with. She spoke in a direct, no-nonsense manner that gave me the impression that I didn't need to pretend. She didn't inquire about Olivia from me. I didn't inquire about Ryan. She simply left me alone. We took a seat on the steps of a bookstore that was closed. Another cigarette was lighted by Emma. Are you always this sulky? She inquired. Only after everyone I trusted has betrayed me. She arched an eyebrow. That sounds a mess. You don't know. She gave the cigarette to me. After hesitating, I took a drag. I coughed as the burn struck the back of my throat. She chuckled. She said, You'll get used to it. I don't know if I want to. She kept a close eye on me. You don't need to explain what transpired to me. However, if you'd like to, I let out a sigh. I saw my girlfriend and best friend together. Emma's face grew serious. Gosh, that's chilly. Yes, I said, returning the cigarette to her. Have you ever experienced infidelity? She gave a sour smile. Yes. What took place? A small stream of smoke was blown forth by her. One discovered that he had another girlfriend the entire time after he claimed to love me. Jesus. She brushed the ash from the cigarette and said, Yes, people are terrible. I chuckled. They actually do. Emma gazed up at the stars while leaning her head back. You still have feelings for her? I paused. I'm not sure. You do, indeed, I let out a sigh. Perhaps, but it makes no difference. She made her decision. Emma gave me a look and said, How about your friend, Ryan? My jaw tensed. I no longer consider him a friend. She gave a nod. All right. He's not deserving of it. I gave her a look. Why are you concerned? She gave a small smile. I don't. You already know what I'm telling you. I started seeing Emma more after that night. Not just yet, and not in a romantic sense. However, she turned into a constant. Someone I could text if the quiet became too much. We would spend late nights together, strolling about the city or conversing about anything and everything while seated at a dive bar. Olivia wasn't like her, more resilient, sharper on the edges. However, I appreciated that she didn't try to change me. We were eating takeaway one evening while seated on the floor of her apartment. Do you ever consider seeking retribution? She asked abruptly. I blinked. On whom? Your former partner. Your companion. I gave a headshake. No. Emma's head cocked. Why not? I said, because it wouldn't change anything. It wouldn't improve my mood. Are you certain about that? I considered it. About how satisfying it may be to hurt them the way they wounded me. I then visualized Olivia's face, though, Ryan's expression. And I came to the realization that I didn't care enough to exact revenge. I'm positive, I said. Emma grinned. Well done. Olivia texted me one evening. Olivia, shall we speak? Would you please? I spent a lot of time looking at the message. After that, I switched off my phone and went to sleep. Ryan arrived at my place of employment a few weeks later. He declared, I'm not here to start anything. I simply wanted to bid you farewell. I scowled. Goodbye? I'm going, he declared. Relocating in California. I remained silent. Ryan whispered, I hope you find someone better. That is something you deserve. I saw him turn to leave without a word. Emma and I went out for drinks that evening. When I told her, she arched an eyebrow. What are your thoughts about it? I gave it some serious thinking. Lighter, I said. Emma grinned. Well done. For the first time in a long time, I had the hope that I might be all right. Months went by. Although life didn't instantly get better, it did feel more manageable. Every day, I felt a bit less burden in my chest. The persistent pain subsided into a faint hum that I could hardly notice. Emma remained. We spent a lot of time together, even though we weren't officially dating. We were strolling across the park one evening. The air was cold and it was late. The stars were out and the sky was clear. Emma was more silent than normal. Are you all right? I inquired. She let out a sigh. Yes. I arched an eyebrow. You sound unwell. After hesitating, she halted her pace. I'm going, she declared. I blinked. What? She nibbled on her lip. I received an opportunity to work in Seattle. This is a good chance. Oh, my chest constricted. When? Next week. I touched the back of my neck and said, Jesus, Emma. That's quick. Yes, she said, glancing down at her shoes. I didn't know how to explain. You just could have said it. She gave a small smile. Indeed. I suppose I could have. Through the trees, a breeze blew. I took a deep breath. So, is this it? Emma gave me a glance. She had the softest eyes I had ever seen. I suppose it is. I wished she would stay. I nearly did. However, I was acquainted with Emma. She wasn't the kind to remain motionless. To be honest, I might have to let her go at that point. She took a step in my direction and touched my chest. Jake, you're going to be fine, she whispered. I encircled her in my arms. She exhaled on my shoulder and gave me a firm squeeze. A second later, she retreated. I will not bid you farewell, she declared. It seems too long-term. I gave a small smile. All right. After giving me a cheek kiss, she turned and left. With her head cocked toward the ground and her hands in her jacket pockets, I watched her vanish down the path, and she was gone in an instant. Olivia gave me a call a week later. I nearly didn't respond, but before my intellect could stop it, my finger moved. I said, "Hey, hello, quiet." "How are you?" she inquired. "I'm all right," I said. "Your voice doesn't sound good." I chuckled softly. "Well, it helps that I'm not having an affair with my best friend." She let out a sigh. "Jake, Olivia, what do you want?" "I'm not sure," she muttered. "I simply miss you." I took a swallow. "Yeah, well, before you ruined my life, you ought to have considered that." "I understand," she said. "I was foolish. Selfish. The first shut my eyes." "Yes, I apologize," Olivia said. "I need you to know that, even though I know it's not enough." I gave myself a forehead rub. My chest hurt, but not in the same way. Rather than an exposed wound, it resembled a dull bruise. "What made you do it?" I inquired. She paused. "I'm not sure. Perhaps all I wanted was to feel wanted." I laughed resentfully. "You choose to harm my best friend, then?" she remarked. "I don't expect you to understand." "No," I replied. "I don't." Another long stillness. "Is it possible for us to reunite as friends?" she inquired. I let out a sigh. "No, Olivia. We are unable to." "Yes," she murmured quietly. I assumed. I said, "I hope you get your act together." "But now it's not my problem." She remained silent for a while. "Next? Goodbye, Jake." I didn't respond. I sat there for a while after hanging up. I received a postcard from Seattle around a month later. "Jake, I hope all is well with you. I don't mind that it's raining a lot here." "It seems familiar." "Don't vanish, please." Emma, I grinned. Several weeks later, I was at a coffee shop when I noticed a person sitting across from me. "Hi." I raised my head. She was attractive, wearing a leather jacket, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and brown eyes. "Hello," I said. She remarked, "I noticed you sitting by yourself. I wanted to say hello." I gave a small smile. "Hello," her head was cocked. "My name is Sophie." "Jake." She grinned. "Jake, good to meet you." I looked at her face. She exuded warmth, an air of ease and transparency. "So," she said, "may I get you a cup of coffee?" After a moment of hesitation, I grinned. "Yes," I said. "I believe I would enjoy that." It wasn't a scene from a movie. No music that swells. Not a stroke of luck. However, it was sufficient. I hadn't moved on from Olivia, not entirely. I might never be. However, I was on my way. Slowly, one step at a time, and I felt hopeful for the first time in a long time.